fuck ICE, fuck Customs and Border Patrol, and fuck the administration that would employ U.S. troops to occupy U.S. cities. In a world where more than half of us don't even have bodily autonomy, shut it down. I gotta take care of old business. I forgot to close out the year of 2025. So here we go. 2025, color of the year, white. Word of the year, slop. That'll do. Yeah, so I had this whole idea of an episode in my head because the last video I talked a little bit about slopaganda, not yet knowing that Merriam-Webster said that slop was the word of the year for 2025. Yeah. So staying focused, because that's part of the real difficulty right now is being able to keep that internal moral compass, to be able to stay focused and to do something. And I'm gonna kind of tell you, I hope I've told you this in the last video, and I'm gonna repeat it. I really struggle lately with organized thinking, and so for me, taking a few minutes and practicing my old Gen X cursive and journaling my thoughts, and then attempting to synthesize it and share it with you is a huge exercise for me cognitively to kind of help me stay straight and help me think about where I need to be focusing my energy. Because the slop, like just the horrible, not even attempting to, the slopaganda is just trash, like trash. And the good news is people really aren't trying to really lie to you. Unfortunately, what they're doing is super duper overwhelming us with just abuse and cruelty. And so this not even seeking, some sort of communal truth or identity is all you gotta know about your survival in this new nation that you got. Now, for the benefit of a few of you who don't know me, or a few of you who only know me a little bit, and you know what, just for the benefit of myself, to repeat the truth about myself, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me and how I grew up, and a few stories today about how I came to understand some things a little differently than as I was taught growing up. And that truth that I experienced is such a powerful threat to what is being organized against the people right now that this government would shoot it in the face 3 times to end it. I grew up in a rural area. And in the Gen X years, we had those 3 channels, and one of the extra channels we sometimes got was PBS, depending on how well the signal could come in. And that developed a type of information ecosystem that I came up in, and that information ecosystem was heavily monitored by people around me. Not so much for my benefit per se, but just to kind of keep things simple in the world. And I remember thinking, growing up, that Sesame Street was really cool because I heard about this land somewhere that had these multiracial identities where people got along, and that really looked different on TV from what I experienced in the trailer park, which was mostly a lot of white people, a heck of a lot of poverty. Did I say a lot of white people? But there were ways of being in the white world of the trailer park, and and it was all very gendered too. So, for example, the men could say certain words that the women couldn't say because it wasn't polite. Nobody stopped to question, why are we using slurs? Why are we making fun of Polish people? Why are we making fun of black people? Why? That type of questioning just wasn't happening. And so that created an information ecosystem wherein I'm sitting in the back seat of, a vehicle, and my grandma's talking anti-Semitically, and I'm like not understanding it, but I'm understanding something, Okay, so what am I understanding? I'm coming up in an ecosystem of rural poverty with a very narrow scope of what is possible, and an extremely frightened and antagonistic and what's the other word I might racist scope about otherness, about other people. And when I think back about it now, I'm like, no wonder PBS is being hit hard right now, because in rural areas sometimes PBS was all I had. So the last couple of years, my wife and I, we've totally been traveling the United States, as it were. I mean, if you want to call it that, United States. When we decided to simplify our life, we didn't know where we wanted to live. We didn't know what state we wanted to be in. And so that's why we live in an RV. Like, none of these places look safe to live, and we just want to be able to move around as needed so we can support our people. As we travel around, we have an antenna that can sometimes pick up local TV stations. And man, our first year out, we were like, whoa, education on local TV stations in different areas. If you're outside a major city, you might get a few more stations. If you're in a rural area, you're lucky to get what I got when I was young. Even found one really cool rural area that had a whole lot of PBS, and I'm like, man, if this place loses PBS, like, it's losing a window to the rest of the world. What I need you to understand is that information ecosystems are tightly controlled. And when the internet came along, they developed these algorithms to keep it tightly controlled. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not super duper knowledgeable about that. The reason I bring this up is because these information ecosystems, I've heard some people call them about silos of thinking. And then somebody also added echo chamber. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it is like being in an echo chamber, these little echo chambers. You know what? That's way too passive. Way too passive. You can be imprisoned and suffocate in a bad information ecosystem. And that if we're in an information ecosystem that does not have Black voices, that does not have Indigenous voices, that does not have queer voices, that does not have disabled voices, then we are in an information ecosystem that is incomplete. Something significant is missing from the information ecosystem. Lack of stories and lack of knowledge in an information ecosystem quickly help us see that these are created information ecosystems, okay? But it's not true that just anybody can get on their cell phone and jump on Queer Possible on YouTube and see a video essay or a vlog entry by Dar. The big thing about this is it makes it really hard to get a unified voice and unified information out to people. And we have had many people for many years do the calls to help us talk to each other, build those community networks, and try to, bring as many people in as you can in the name of just being a good human. Holy moly. Public schools, for all their problems, and there are many problems that occur in the public schools, but I saw some things coming out of the public schools that scare the bejesus out of this administration. And thing is diversity as a value, equity as a starting point, and inclusion as rightful presence for everybody. Those really scare fascists. The public schools were doing that work. We were doing that work, not everywhere. I mean, there's still high schools in southern Missouri with the rebels as their mascot. There's still like incredible problems like segregation, but that's part of it, separating people out so that we don't hear the ideas of people other than us. There was good work going on, and it's that good work that has the regime totally scared and attacking education so flippin' hard. We have a regime that is really hell-bent on flooding the zone with slopaganda, sometimes lies, sometimes not entire lies, okay? And there's just a total disregard for humanity. There's a total disregard for community. Um, there's a lot of fascist values. Say Heather Cox Richardson has kind of figured it out. Danielle Moody really has it figured out. Joyanne Reed really has it figured out. And so I listen to them and them talk about, what's going on. And that way I have a little more information from outside my immediate information ecosystem, which is not always that great, especially under fascism. The control of information and the control of ideas is key, is critical, so important to them. Sometimes it's like, well, what can I count on? What can I rely upon? And what I would like to say is that most of the times, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, like what can I believe, what can I rely upon, most of the times, functionally speaking, you actually do probably, maybe, have enough information before you or available to you at the moment to make the decisions you need to make. Maybe. Okay, but first, let's identify some decisions we need to make. We haul our own water, okay, especially drinking water. And one of the tasks of us getting our own drinking water is that I sanitize the bottles before I take them in and refill them with fresh water. And I don't go to the CDC website anymore and double check that stuff. I don't trust the CDC website anymore, not even on how to sanitize a bottle. So, I go ahead and I read the manufacturer label, and I remember what I was taught back when I did work in a place where we sanitized things. We did the old rinse, wash, rinse, sanitize, and, figured it out, and was able to get that information, okay? And so I was able to make sure our family has fresh drinking water, avoiding listeria at all costs if we can, and other yucky things. How do you know what's true with fascists? Okay, so you don't always, you really don't. For the most part, I think we do kind of have to assume that the fascists are frequently lying. And the occasions that they maybe do tell the truth, there's probably an insidious reason, or they just weren't paying attention. Because this is a really sloppy, incompetent group of people. And right now, I think that's working to our advantage. I would not count on that advantage for much longer, but for now, they just don't even care. Fair to ask, how do I know what's really going on? Here's what I have experienced, and I somewhat think is common when it comes to dealing with how to know what's going on when clearly state media is lying to you. You're like, state media? What did she just say? Yeah, I said state media. I said what I said. And I think if you don't know who your state media are by now, by the end of this video, I think you're going to have a way to be like, oh, this might be operating as state media right now. Fascists release information with intention because they just want to get all the flipping money, okay? They're carving up the globe in advance of difficult times ahead. These fascists know that there are difficult times ahead, and the people that follow them know there are difficult times ahead. Now, they won't call it climate crisis. No, because that there is not going to play well to their narrative, right? But things are not going to go well for many of us, and are not going well for many people right now. And some of it really is directly linked to climate, having fresh water, having good shelter. So when a fascist is giving out information, you can't trust that information is true per se, but you can still listen and benefit from knowing some things. Okay, so what do we know this week? When Renee Good's video of her shooting was released, I noticed right away that the People's version was released first. You will find this to almost always be the case. Almost always. If there's video evidence of what has happened, And please be recording as much as you can. If there's video evidence about what has happened, and it's going to be released by the target, the people who were physically harmed, state violence, that's what we're dealing with here, state violence, okay? The first videos out, if given out by the people who were there and recorded it, usually have all the information you need. If you get a video out like the Good Family released, that was all you needed to know. Like, that was all you needed to know. Now, I get it. Like, there was another video released later from this angle, from that angle, from this angle, from that angle, and from the fascist angle. All of those videos were additional information, and almost none of them gave you any additional information that added to, almost none of them gave you any additional information that added to the fundamental knowledge that the state has murdered a person. That is the fundamental knowledge. The state has murdered a person. Now, there's additional details. The state murdered a person who was white. The state murdered a person who was a white woman. These are all additional details. The state murdered a person who is a white woman and queer. And a little bit by little bit, these additional things came out. Y'all, those are just details. Those are just additional details. The state murdered a person is the first story. And then the state released their own fucking video. Whoa, damn. Now, that is not frequent that I experience that. I'm just being real honest with you. And so we have to slow down and be like, for what purpose did they release the video? This is propaganda. There's propaganda to be frothed up by the state releasing their version. And what's interesting is the state video plays and interprets differently in different information ecosystems. For me, I saw in that additional video that not only was she a white queer woman, they might have just been a little uppity with the dude. They might have just said some things that affected his feelings about his authority. They might have smart-mouthed him. They might have gotten cheeky. The audacity of these women to think they can speak to gunmen this way. Enforcing state, violence against the community, they met this situation with these women, and they're like, no. Pow. What the fuck? Yeah, so what we learned from the subsequent videos that I think is important to catch above and beyond the state murdered somebody is that the state murdered somebody because they got just a little too big for their britches and threatened a white man's authority. And that additional piece of information is the propaganda that was released by the fascist side, the pro-ICE contingent. I don't know what we want to call these people right now. In the whitewashed ecosystem, it gave the people who are prone to making excuses for cops, okay? It gave them a reason to be, see, like, there's your smart mouth. You chose and you got the consequence. If you're on social media, there's a new round of propaganda. We saw the full video. We saw the woman, and they call her the butch sometimes. We saw the butch smarting off, and it's like, what they're telling us, okay, what they're reifying, what they're repeating over and over and over in the comments sections is smart-ass women will be shot, even white ones. And that is kind of serious. It is. But I'll tell you, this has been happening. This is not new. It's just in its concentrated form in a blue city in a blue state, let this murder of Renee go. It functions as a litmus test. And the reason it functions as a good litmus test is because it is an act of the state that has such a bifurcated impact depending on your information ecosystem. And I'm not even going to pretend like there's two information ecosystems, because there's not. There's whole Black communities that are watching this and digesting their feelings about that. And I only have the opportunity to hear 2 or 3 individual people occasionally speak what they're processing on this issue from the Black community. There's indigenous communities, hundreds of indigenous communities that are like processing this as well. And, you know, they know what it means. But does everybody know what it means the same? Well, you know, is everybody process? No, there's multiple experiences on this. But these are opinions and viewpoints that, you know, are we hearing them in the mainstream news? Oh my gosh, no. So how do we decide if you're kind of dealing with state media? You know, I'm not super duper sure, but I can tell you, I think we can identify when media in specific instances seems to be operating to cover the state's ass. I can't tell you truthfully that CBS News is state media, but I can tell you there's at least a handful of situations where we have to get our news flipping bootlegged to us because CBS is canceling stories for political reasons, reducing our information ecosystem, not allowing us to have the full information of what's going on out there. That act, they may not be state media, but for that instance, they might as well be operating as state media. How do we know it's operating for the state? I never even had that question, not even once in my life, from the year 1971 till the year 2005. Now, to be fair, some of those years I wasn't old enough to ask that question. And I was a little punk all along, so it wasn't that I was copping to authority every time we turned around. But in 2005 was Hurricane Katrina, and that was one of the first times that I got a bird's eye view of what's happening in another community that is being tragically wrecked by a climate catastrophe, an absolute climate catastrophe. What the media was speaking and reporting did not match what I was literally seeing with my eyes on video. Further, I was old enough on my own that I was starting to develop ideas about, wait a minute, that's not how government ought to operate with their people. I grew up in a very narrow information ecosystem. So, like, I was able to see roots growing up. I was able to know that there were very bad actors out there in the past and up to today that do terrible things to Black people and African Americans. But I never learned how to identify it in the now, much less how to advocate for people. I actually couldn't really do that too well until I learned how to do that for myself. And by 2005, I had done enough of that critical thinking for myself, like just how people treat me being an oddball and a queer. I was able to understand that I don't know the story. And there's more to the story. But also the story I am being told does not match what is literally happening on the screen. So Katrina was the first time I, as a human on my own in my adulthood, really kind of understood the importance of questioning. Wait a minute, why does the media report not match what the media is literally sharing with me on video? There's another time that this happened. I grew up and had to go to foster care a couple of times, and I did not get to raise my child. And so I've always really wanted to nurture and help other young people because so many people nurtured and helped me on the way. And so at one point, Katie and I thought it would be a good idea to be foster parents. That's a different story. But here's what I will tell you as foster parents. Our one and only foster placement was two African American girls whose names will remain confidential. And they were young girls, 6 and 7, and they were only in our care for a brief time for reasons, again, that we'll get into in another episode if you all want to hear the story. We were learning how to braid their hair, and by we I mean Katie, because my hands don't do these things. I did foods mostly, but Katie was learning how to braid their hair. Now, here's where I just got to go ahead and give you a little information. White people, if you're adopting young children and they happen to have African American or black hair, you must learn how to do black hair. Like, it's neglect if you don't. There was images on the screen about the protests. And so post Mike Brown, a couple of weeks after Mike Brown had been murdered, there was information on the screen about the protests. We were doing hair and we were talking about what we saw on the news. And it was stuff that we were okay with being on the TV. It was not images of him lying in the street for 3 or 4 hours. And the protests in Ferguson were very near to where we were in St. Louis. Okay, but we had the responsibility of these kids, so we did not go seek to protest at that point. But as we're watching the TV, all 4 of us were watching the TV as they reported the protests, because we thought it was a good thing for the kids to see the protests. We wanted the kids to see, no, we don't all agree with this, and it is proper to not agree with this. And so we were having that sitting down and watching the TV time, and we noticed that what the newscasters were saying literally did not match what was being shown in the video. And it was slopaganda. Like, they didn't even try, because most of the time they don't have to try. Most of the time people just are like, well, police had to kill another person, bullshit, but that's the attitude. Katie and I protested pretty actively regarding the Ferguson and St. Louis occupation and uprising for years. And years later, they were still killing people, state killings of people. And I think it was August of 2019, Mansur Ball Bey was murdered. And when Mansur Ball Bey was murdered, we were connected enough in the community that we were getting first accounts faster sometimes than the press, faster sometimes than the police. And, and when the more connected you are, the quicker you're going to get that information, is just what I think I need to say. And so we were able to get to this location, Page and Walton. It's in St. Louis. And if you ever go there, it's just a little street leading into a neighborhood from a main thoroughfare, and there's a lot of kids that live there. When I was there, I saw kids riding their bicycles. But Mansur Ball Bey was murdered by the police. He was just doing his flippin' job, trying to deliver a package. If I remember correctly, he even had like a UPS uniform on. Now, forgive me, at some point, it's been years. Many people have been shot and killed, and so I might have some of the Mansur Ball Bey details not quite right, but he was murdered by the state. That's what you need to know, okay? Additional details don't make it better. We were there and grieving with the community, and when the grieving of the community offended the police, I don't know, they came, they marched on us, they brought Bearcats, they shot tear gas at us. I mean, they beat the asses of the community that was outside grieving the murder of Mansur Ball Bey. And, you know, his family were there. Like, kids were coming home from school while the St. Louis Police Department was engaging in militarized operations against the community. Now, I won't go into like incredible detail about it, but here's what I will tell you. At the end of my participation in Page and Walton, I knew a few things. One, they are going to kill us. They don't mind killing us. The state is incredibly violent against black folks and people who are in solidarity with black folks. Less observed by me, but occasionally observed. Same for indigenous folks in St. Louis. And now it's like everybody brown and black, whether they're immigrant, indigenous, born here U.S. citizen, you know, descendants of ancestors who were kidnapped. Y'all, all the stories of the people that we should hopefully have solidarity with are very likely missing from our information ecosystems. So I would just encourage you, if you can, to try to grab those resources. I'm going to add in the comments a link to the Joy Reid show. You know, she used to be on MSNBC, and she still does her show. She is still expertise out there doing journalism work. And I'm also going to give you Danielle Moody. And I really like watching Danielle Moody because, well, she cuts through the bullshit. Like, she just says what it is. And I'm going to tell you what, you might occasionally be uncomfortable, you know, with some of the things that people outside your culture say. It's real. Like, sometimes that's real for me. But just hang in there, listen, and learn, because you're going to need much more than voting to get through what we're in right now. Okay? You're going to need so much more. Like I'm still vote. Too many people died for us to have the right to vote. So I'm still pro-vote. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to need more than voting. Here's what I figured out, though, from specifically Page and Walton. One, they'll kill us, and they will. Like, they've got the military power, and they will. Now, not every one of them wants to kill us. Some of them just want to hurt us. We don't know who's who wants to murder us and who just wants to hurt us. But are you catching the truth here? It is not well with the state. It is not well with the state when you really can't tell which ones want to kill you versus just want to hurt you. But I think that that's a piece of truth right there. If you speaking your mind and being who you are in a way that does not really hurt anyone brings violence to you, then you are not a free person. You are not living in a free state. The Page and Walton thing, I told you, they beat our asses, right? Nobody got killed that time, the night I was there. But they hurt us. Like, they just hammered on us. Now, Page and Walton is located very near a place called the Central West End. So in St. Louis, there's the Central West End where, you know, people come and they enjoy these wonderful outdoor dining experiences, and it's a little bit on the moneyed side. And then like 6 or 8 blocks away, it's just absolute militarized police catastrophe. And I remember looking up in the tear gas, and in the distance I saw a rainbow. And this is back when I still used Twitter. And I remember opening Twitter because I was posting the pictures. And I remember opening Twitter. So at a Cardinals game, all these folks visiting St. Louis proper, and some were living in St. Louis proper, but coming into the city to see the game, they saw the same rainbow. And then I took a minute and I thought, wait a minute, we're just a few blocks from the Central West End. And I saw Twitter where in the Central West End they're seeing the rainbow too. And I'm like, I see y'all see the rainbow, but do you taste the metallic chemical tear gas in the air? And no. Right next to these two events with moneyed people, not far at all, an absolute military operation is being engaged upon in a little neighborhood as retaliation for having the audacity to feel grief and emote it over a murdered, because it was murder, y'all. The community members knew him and helped raise him, and he was a younger guy. They murdered him and then had grief in the streets, and the police beat the shit out of us, hit us with chemical weapons. Like, it was not kind, y'all. And we all saw the same rainbow, but we didn't get the same information about what was going on. I'm not sure who's quoted with this, but I said it before Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead. I'm sure somebody said it and I heard it. Things are so much better and so much worse than we can possibly know. Man, I got some fresh air today. That sunshine came down on me, and that was good. Me and my dog got to sit outside. I got to catch up with a few very important people in the last 24 hours. My life is very, very good. And for some people out there, there's goodness happening that is just off the charts awesome. And I don't know about it. Inversely, same for the things that are no good. Like, there are many things that I don't know that are just so no good. And so it's so much better and so much worse than we all could possibly know. We're not going to get the full truth on a lot of things. Sometimes we just got to accept the truth that we are able to discern and work with that. And actually, if you think about it, that's what humans have done for a long time. I mean, there's people surviving in parts of the world that have absolutely no idea about our culture. It's at this point, I'll just go ahead and point out, it's real popular in fascists in falling power to bring back bloodlust. I'm not an expert on the Roman Empire, but my understanding, based on history that I've read, is that when the Roman Empire was still intact, there was a walled city, and apparently the Visigoths were outside holding them siege, and no food was getting in or out, and in the fall of Rome was the goal, and I don't even know the name of the general, but it was somebody they had done dirty, though. It was somebody they had done dirty, because like the Romans were really big about bringing in the leaders of whoever they conquered, and then, you know, using them, because Romans themselves did not have enough people to run their own army, right? And so like the Visigoths were at one point, this one particular general was actually part of the Roman Empire, apparently was done dirty, or somebody done somebody wrong, and decided, oh, okay, well, I think my people need to eat, so we're going to lay siege to your damn city. And so the siege, you know, starved the Romans basically until they finally just gave up, and were dying of starvation. But during the siege, how did the authorities keep the people of Rome, you know, engaged socially? With bloodlust. Like, they had the gladiatorial stuff. They would totally bring out these people that they called criminals. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. And they would just rip them apart with, you know what the Romans did. And you know what? People were sitting in the stands, according to the reporting of the history, watching this stuff, okay? And they're starving. And they're placated by the violence against somebody else. And apparently by the time it was all done, there was cannibalism. So it's like they're also like, oh, we're going to take this person to the butcher. Bloodlust. It's a thing, and they're using it now. Like, that we have Charlie Kirk's murder on video, I'm so thinking that we know their last sentences and that we have their murders on video. Like, releasing the fascists releasing the additional scenes from that served the purpose of, one, letting every white queer woman or every white woman know, shut your fucking mouth, because if you talk back to your men right now, shut your mouth, because if you talk back to your men right now, we will shoot you in the head. Now, not everybody's going to get shot in the head, okay? They won't shoot everybody in the head, but don't be surprised if they do a dozen. Don't be surprised if they do a dozen at once. And also, like, we women know. White ones, we know. We white people know how fucking violent white people are. Like, we came up in these families. We know. And it really is a brave act that any of us are even coming out of our shells to talk about that stuff and be like, yeah, white people that I know and love, knock it off, right? Like, it's a kind of a big deal. Yeah, so, you know, they're telling their own people, first off, you better woman right. That's this whole anti-trans stuff. You better woman and man right correctly, if you will. That's that transphobia that they got going on. You know, so they're just telling all non-male genders, whether we're a little on the butchy side, whether we're a little on the transy side, whether we're just cisgender women, minding our business, doing our day. They let us all know that, and by the way, regardless of side, regardless of if you're a fascist or an anti-fascist, they've let us all know, you get cheeky with us, we're going to shoot you, or hurt you, or kill you, or do whatever the things are that we like to do to hurt you, because we know that they like to do a lot of things to hurt us, don't we? Yeah, we know. They do a lot of things to hurt us. Yeah, so that's what they're doing. They're letting their own people know, you better not speak out. We will drag your ass, you know. And then they're also letting people who are anti-fascist know that the stakes are actually pretty high. The stakes are pretty high. And so, are your values really worth it? Losing jobs suck. Getting beat up and chemical weaponed sucks. Getting unalived, it hurts for your family. I believe that it hurts the person after they've passed, but it hurts your family. And so now all of us, whether we're fascist or anti-fascist, regardless of the information ecosystem you're in, all of us are having to make decisions about how to proceed, because some of us don't know how to comply. Some of us, just by our very existence, offend the sensibilities of these incredibly fragile people. I'm the cheeky one. I'm the one that would definitely say some shit. Do I want them to punish me by murdering the people I love? I'm the mouthy one, the uppity one, the one that keep her goddamn mouth shut. Do I want to be unalived and have my family have to deal with that? To deal with being taken away and having my story retold differently for me? And they also let us know that they have the power to tell our story for us, to absolutely change it. Trans people have been telling you this with the dead naming going on after people have died. Yeah, you know, on our side, the anti-fascist side, we really got to be intentional about honoring each other's stories, honoring each other's ways of being, and really holding each other up for that. And the other side just sees it as their God-given right to smear us, and, you know, man, the making fun of the mental health, the derision about weight, the torment that they must exact on others, and for what? So I vacillate. It's like, on one hand, I'm like, people don't have good information. Okay, that's why I always come out of the box. Let's start with teaching. Okay? And that's why I still talk about things, and that's why I'm trying to scratch my way back and share my video log. Tell your story while you still can. Tell your story because you can. Your truth does not have to die with you. But if you're not telling your truth, it does die with you. And their story about you is what sticks. If you watch videos that have state violence in them, and you gotta know it has an impact on you. So if you haven't done this already, start taking care and be super conscious about your decision when you do choose to watch a state violence video. I take a minute and I think, I'm about ready to watch a snuff film. I'm about ready to see a person murdered. Is this something that my emotional and mental capacity is good with right now? Sometimes no, and so I don't. So I, wait, because the worst has already happened. And whether I watch it now or later, maybe for my own mental health, later's just fine, right? But when I have the ability, I consciously, name what I'm about to do. I'm going to watch this state violence. This is our government killing somebody. And I take a minute to kind of honor that as kind of significant, that a murder's happened. And then I watch, and I try to watch for what happened with as open mind as possible, to see the bits, because our brains, they do things to help us understand our world, and they tend to like obfuscate this stuff over here on the edge and focus on certain things that are a little more survival oriented, right? I trust myself enough that when I watch those things, that if I do see the murder, now I'm thinking specifically of a murder of an autistic person, they were on the ground. And watching that and knowing it's not just some fiction from The Walking Dead, it's supposed to do something here. It's supposed to ache here, regardless of the color of the skin, regardless of the level of ability. When you see an execution, it hurts here. But I found out, not for everybody, and not always for everybody. And that's some of the bloodlust that we're seeing. So that same film that is educating me that, once again, a state murder's happened, a state killing has happened. That same film, in a different cultural information ecosystem, specifically the one that's being manufactured on social media right now, becomes calls to, well, that's what the smart ass gets. You know, the old FAFO. Well, you should have complied. You know, like all these things. Y'all, being a smartass is not a capital offense. None of your kids would make it to adulthood. All of us have been smartasses a few times. And quite frankly, you're executing a long-standing hate crime now in a community, and community members get smart with you, and your little fragile ass has to kill them? No. The bloodlust is what you got to watch out for. And it's manufactured bloodlust every time they put a video up and put it on repeat. And then they let people act like fucking armchair forensic scientists. It's like, no, I know you guys are not fucking doing this. Rewriting the whole murder, focusing on things that aren't even there, speaking in writing and verbally things that aren't even there. Having a smart mouth is cause for murder? Noted. So what else does this do? It is training the fascist demographic among us, because there's a fascist demographic among us. I don't know who they all are, but they exist. It's training the fascist demographic among us to absolutely just want for blood. Yeah, one time a lesbian got smart with me. I remember it was in a DI training at work, and oh my God, all I said was, well, if they can say the N-word, but they really said it, why can't I say the N-word, but they really said it? In a flippin' training. And that lesbian, they don't say lesbian, called me out for being a bigot, said I was racist. God, I'd love to just, rage, 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 rage. Rage. Bloodlust on top of rage. So y'all, the lynchings have been happening, okay? Lynchings have been happening. There have been reports in the news of black men found hanging in trees. You know, there are things that are true that obviously we can never 100% know to be factually true, but yet they are still true. And here's one of those truths. Black men in the United States just don't hang themselves, okay? That's one of those true things that we couldn't possibly know it's factually true, but it's true. It's true. And those lynchings are happening. But now also, it's open season on gender nonconforming, on cisgender women, on white people who are anti-fascist, white people who disagree with police violence, with state violence, white people who have the audacity to express an opinion outside of what this current climate is calling for. Like, so, you know, here's what I will say as far as finding the truth right now. Seek less the truth about a specific event and lists of facts and things that are litigious and you know, how shall I say, you know, evidence, if you will. Seek that, obviously, insofar as it serves you in the law, but our young pastor of the family, they reminded me that the law does not keep us safe. And I'm like, oh, of course. Baby girl keeps me safe. You want to come keep me safe? Come keep me safe. Come on. Come on. Oof, 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 oof. we're going to have to set this up so that next time Gracie Girl can be a part of the video, because she apparently really, 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 oh yeah, she really likes this. You heard me talking about safety, and you said, Idagoggy in charge of safety. Why am I not a part of this film? My bad. Oh, safety. Instead of focusing, I swear I cleaned my ears. Girl, I'm trying to talk. Okay, so instead of focusing so much on what's literally true, that can be debated in a court, that can be proven with science, yada yada yada, data, evidence, quantitative, even qualitative, whatevs. Let's go ahead and take time now to come up with what's communally true. Ooh, communally true. And this is why I really rarely diss on religious and spiritual practices, because what they do is they do try to come up with like what is a community truth. I don't share many of their religious ideas and practices, but that whole idea of having a community truth makes great sense. And so let's come up with some community truths, right? Like, I recognize that diversity, equity, and inclusion are freaking awesome, man. And, and if you don't, I'm happy if you want to be part of a group to kind of like talk through it and, share my ideas with you and what. And if that's threatening to you, we don't have to, but it will limit how close we become. And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. But, if we wanted to talk about bodily autonomy, well, I have really strong feelings that people should be able to make decisions about their body. Now, I get like there's this, age 18 body modification for safety, those are cultural traditions, and where the cultures value that tradition, I think that's fair. But also, what about that autonomy that a child should have? What about that autonomy that a child should have, but maybe doesn't have yet because, they can't make certain decisions until they're of a particular age? Well, you know what? Let people talk through that stuff. Like, and y'all, the whole child thing is just, it's absolute slopaganda. Nobody's hurting children. Nobody, well, wait a minute. Nobody in the LGBTQ community is systemically doing that, okay? Like, the whole idea that healthcare, gender-affirming healthcare for kids is hurting them, let that shit go. That's that anti-LGBTQ trope of the queers are going to hurt your kids. Y'all, we should follow the rules everybody else does, like on a job. We should pass background checks. We should be safe people who don't harm people. Okay, people do harm people. We don't want people who harm people working with kids. But LGBTQ teachers who meet all their qualifications, we are some of the best people for your kids. Not that we should be the only type of teacher they get, but we really do have so much good experience to share. And nobody's hurting trans kids. And so this very idea that every time there's an LGBTQ topic, oh my God, we got to protect the kids. Knock it off. I so digressed. So, as people who do not like fascism, for me, that makes me anti-fascist. I choose to be anti-fascist because not only do I not like fascism, I am willing to work against it. Like, I am ready to go. Let's work against it. But, what are our shared values? For me, bodily autonomy, to get back to that whole thing. Oh, I know, when I get excited, she gets excited. I always get excited talking about bodily autonomy. If you're a cisgender woman and you want to change your body to be more affirming of your gender in some way, do it. And same if you're a transgender woman. Absolutely do it. Do it. And women should be able to make that decision. Cisgender and trans women should be able to make that decision. If you have a uterus and you want to bear a child, do it. Whether you're trans or cis, if you have a uterus and you want to try to carry a child, you're willing to take that risk, and you want to build a family that way, because there's so many ways, but if you want to do it that way, do it, man. That should be 100% your choice. And also, if you have a pregnancy you don't want to carry, you should have the ability to choose that. You should have control of your medical decisions. And so for me, any community value that we're going to agree on that doesn't really understand bodily autonomy and that maximum bodily autonomy should be allowed, in keeping in mind health and public and safety and whatnot. And yes, it does count also with vaccines. If you had the information, and that's part of bodily autonomy, is having enough information to make a fair decision. And if you had enough information and access to make a fair decision, you'd be fine with vaccinations, or you might not be fine with vaccinations. But if enough of us had enough information and access, most of us would be okay with it, and then we would make herd immunity. And we wouldn't have the fucking measles coming back. What's scientifically true is also a community decision. And that's why they're working so hard to make things unscientific. That was my nighttime alert. And Doggy's telling me I should make my dinner. Hey, Doggy, can we say goodnight? If some of the things are hard to hear or hard to talk about, doesn't it go a little better when you have a nice fluffy beastie weastie to pet? All right, Gracie, say goodnight.